Welcome to Ultimate Sensei, a chess coaching competition unlike any other. Over the next several weeks, 4 of the world's best trainers will work with 8 hungry students, ready to do whatever it takes to improve their game. Who will work the hardest to improve? Whose methods will prove supreme? And who will become the ultimate sensei?
To Ultimate Sensei. Today we are doing our Endgame challenge. I am the commissioner and host of this second season of Endgame Sensei, and I am delighted to be joined by a season 1 participant, Max, aka Chess Gains. Hi, Max.
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
Welcome to the show. Fantastic to have you and see you again. It looks like it's okay, Trit. I think we're live. So Max participated in season 1, which similarly had 2-player teams and a coach. Max started season 1 as the 7th pick and finished in 3rd place in the final tournament. And you didn't stop improving there. Max, what have you done in the last year?
Well, since tournaments have resumed, which I played my first at the end of May, I've gained almost 200 USCF points. So, and still work in progress. I'm playing one more in a week.
How many OTB tournaments have you played about in 7 months?
Yeah, I'd say roughly a dozen or so.
Yeah. That's nice. 1 per month, I think, is enough to sustain good progress. But if you're able to occasionally get 2, that's all good. That's all good. So we'll get more time to chat throughout the day. But now for all the fans, we're going to introduce our contestants. So here we go to the big view, and now you all can see everybody who's here today. And if you're in chat, now's a great time to let your favorite person or just the person you're betting on know that you're supporting them. I know sometimes you support somebody just because you bet on them and you want to be right about things. It doesn't even mean you like them. You're just like, I think Seth's going to win this competition, so I'm going to bet on him. And then you just have to root for him because you want to be right. Oh no, Seth's betting against himself already. Anyway, how are you guys doing? This is going to be even less nerve-wracking than 2 weeks ago. Are you feeling relaxed and happy?
Yeah, generally.
Drit's good. Lars is good. Eric, a little bit less so. We should probably give a special introduction to Eric, aka Rengao, who is joining us as a replacement for Blue Jay. Blue Jay had to withdraw for personal reasons that I'm not going to get into, but we definitely wish him all the best, and we're sorry not to have him here with us. But we're also happy to have you, Eric. So thanks for stepping up and hopping in and trying to fit in some big shoes because Jay went out on a high note 2 weeks ago. He showed off his tactical skills. He moved up in our power rankings. But now we'll see where you fit in here. Is there anybody here who feels like they're particularly good in endgames relative to other phases of the game? Maybe Seth? One maybe. No enthusiastic yeses. Well, someone must be selling themselves short. Like one of you has to be relatively better at endgames than the others are, and we will find out who you are today. All right,
I have a strong strategy of be less bad today.
Be less bad might be enough. Yeah. Often endgames are something where very few people have much confidence, but Max is a fantastic endgame player, and that's one of the reasons why it's perfect to have him on today.
I try to be.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over the rules now, not just for the viewers and fans, but also for the players. They don't know the rules yet. So I'm going to bring up an image or two here to show you all the format for today. So first of all, contestants, you will be playing 6 games today. All 6 games will be end games. And in fact, there'll only be 3 different positions. So like if I give you a certain position and you're like, oh, this is so busted for black and he gave me black, you'll get to play it with white as well. Okay, so you'll play 3 different end games and you'll play each of those end games twice. Any questions on that part? Okay.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is, I just want to state it, like,
Yeah.
we're not, no post-game analysis or game review of how it went because we're going to play the position again.
Because you will play the position again, it's very important what you do or don't do with the 2 to 3 minute break between games. Okay.
Are we allowed to look at an engine?
So you are not allowed to look at an engine.
Okay.
You are also not allowed to call Kostya Kavutskiy or anybody like that on speed dial. Okay. What you can do is you can talk to Falk for you, Dritman, right? You can talk to your teammate. So between games, there will be deliberately a couple minute break where you can check in with your teammate and say like, I think this pawn's weak. And they say, no, I think that pawn's weak. Or I think we should try to queen. And they say, but we don't have a passed pawn. And you say, oh yeah, thanks for telling me. So you are going to have a break. It's not going to be like down to the second perfection, but you should expect that it'll be on the order of 3 minutes to talk with your teammate.
So as a team, we're both going to play the same position then?
Yes. And you'll be matched up round by round with another team. So like Katrina, when you play Dritman, let's say, then you would know, let's see, your teammate is,
Lars.
Your teammate is Lars. You would know that Lars is playing against Falk when you're playing against Dritman, and that they're playing the same position as you.
Got it.
And then you'll flip colors.
And then we're going to switch sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would let's say both have white in the first round, and then you would switch opponents and you would both get black.
Okay.
So if you have white against Dritman, you'll have black against Falk. And Lars would start with white against Falk and then black against Dritman.
Okay.
Okay. And so over the course of 6 games, you will play each person once except for Lars, right? Except for your own teammate.
Right, because then we'll just switch.
Yeah.
Our team will be playing, but
so
differently.
you'll play against, let's say, Team Matt. You'll play both people on Team Matt. Then the next new position you'll play against both players from Team Kostya. And then in the next round, you'll play against both people from Team Sasha.
You first go as white, you change the position right away, you go into black, and then it's going to be 3 other positions. Is that how that works?
So you'll have the same position with white and black against one team.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the next pair of games, it'll be the second position.
So there will be a position where I have to play white against Eric and black against Lula from of that position.
Yes.
Or vice versa.
Right.
That's right.
And that's what we're going to be. That's what we have the 2 minutes to discuss.
Yes. So you'll have a couple minutes. So you have a couple minutes between those games to discuss when you actually know the position. There will also be a 2 or 3 minute break between round 2 and round 3 where you don't yet know the position for the next round. But you can either decompress or talk to your chat or talk to your teammate. It's up to you what you do with those minutes.
Right. And that's the exact same between like round 4.
Between round 4 and 5.
Yeah,
You won't have a position to discuss, but you'll get a 3 minute break.
Got it.
You can do with it whatever you think as well. Like if you think your teammate needs cheering up, that could be a good thing to do with that time, for example. It could be like psychologically coach your teammate. Because one other thing about the format today is that the prizes are going to be team prizes. So we're going to add the score of 2 players on a team. Okay, so you're playing chess, which is an individual game, but it definitely has a feeling of a bit of a team event today, because at the end I'll add, let's say, Katrina's score and Lars's score together. And that'll be the score for Team Andras, right? And then we'll compare that to the other scores and see if your team has earned $300, $200, or $100 for the 4 prizes. Okay. Let's see. That actually covers most of today's format, other than just, I'll start the games for you. I'll sort of spoof the command. You just have to be in live chess.
What's the time control?
And the games will pop up for you. You will have 8 minutes with an additional 5-second increment, which I think will be
for each, yeah.
Yeah, which I think will be adequate for these positions, because you'll be well more than halfway into a game compared to if you were playing a 15-5. Seth, your question?
How will do we need to get like in a Discord call with our teammate or something? Like, how are we going to have those discussions?
It's up to you how you want to chat with them.
Okay.
The one thing is, like, absolutely don't click on like an evaluation bar or a chess.com engine or something like that.
Oh yeah. I was just talking about like the verbal.
For verbally with your teammate, you could talk to them on Discord, or you could talk to them with the Zoom chat. There's an option in the Zoom chat. Instead of to everyone, you can chat to a specific person. So you could chat like that. You could call each other on the phone. And yes, there are 2 individual stakes involved today. So the player winning first place today. Oh, sorry, it's a mistake on my graphic. But the player getting first today gets at least the 2nd seed in the final tournament, which will be like a bracket, meaning that they would play against the 7th seed when we get to the final weekend. So it'll be an advantage to be the higher seed. So first prize today, from an individual perspective, you get at least the 2nd seed. If you also win the Blitz tournament, you'll get the 1st seed, and whoever finishes 2nd today will get the 2nd seed instead of you. So the 2nd seed is on the line today. And finally, the person finishing in 8th place today individually would be relegated to the elimination challenge. So when we get to the finals, they will have to pass a test to get into the finals. And one note on that is, if you get 8th place this week, but then you win the Blitz tournament, winning the 1st or 2nd seed automatically pulls you out of that 8th place thing. So that also rescues you from elimination if you get 1st place in any of the competitions. So if Ty or Eric end up winning the Blitz, the tactics challenge from 2 weeks ago, that would also make them safe from the elimination challenge. Okay. Any questions on that? I know there are like a couple like slightly tricky scenarios, but the idea we're going for is like finishing in 8th place is bad, so try to avoid that. Like, it's really good to win the tournament, but if at some point in the standings you don't feel like you're winning the tournament, you can definitely like do your best to not end up in 8th place, and that'll be worth fighting for. All right, all 4 games have been started. They are off. I'm going to click around really quickly and see if there's any game where it seems like someone's already winning or the game's reaching.
I think Seth is pretty much just ready to clean up.
He's got the king in position to start eating pawns, and Velcro Dot's last move was h5, suggesting some kind of last-ditch mischief.
Look at what's going on in Bob Joe Jim's game against Narg.
Oh, my goodness. A breakthrough.
Wow.
We're going to back up 1 move. The white king gets in.
That was an amazing
ready
play.
To eat everything. And h4 from Nargave. King takes f5, g3, trying to distract the f pawn from stopping the e pawn. Takes.
Unbelievable. That's like that old pawn endgame. Like, I don't know if it's a study, if it's actually from an old game, but there's like that similar breakthrough theme. Yeah, she has good chances.
Calculation.
There we go.
Does find e3. Nice move. calmly takes a sip of her smoothie despite the short time and the pressure here.
King C5, B6. I don't know about B6. Actually, yeah, no, I mean, maybe that works. Takes, King F4. I think she might be just in time to draw.
Yeah. She's playing it all correctly as well, despite the low time. Looks very relaxed.
One takes, King takes. Yeah, I think the king is just one square close enough.
You think it's that close? I would think it'd be easy for black to draw, but let's count the tempi. King there. King here, king here, king here, king here, king here, king here, king here. By one tempo, huh? Wow. Okay, it's by one tempo. She's got it.
If her king was coming from A6, she would be lost, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. It's only by one tempo. The key is whether the white king can get to G7 or the black king can get to F8. For anyone who wants to like quickly figure out these kind of races. But we've got a comment from chat that A6 would have won for white instead of taking on B6. But that's not true because the black king goes to C6, covering the A pawn. And now black still has to pass B pawn. You can't go take the H5 pawn with white or black will queen. So that
also,
would not
Velcrodot's position is worrying me. Although I also didn't like what Bob Joe Jim just did. That made no sense to me.
This is the race one. King here, takes,
he just gave up a pawn?
Oh, it must have been a
G
mouse
pawn
slip
is now
versus
too
H takes
close.
G4 here. There's no use in spending a whole move losing your pawn.
Yeah, why would he not take? I don't understand.
And Bob Joe Jim is flagging as well, right here.
Oh my goodness. No, because if he took king takes, king B4. Oh, is she would have promoted in the corner first.
So Velcrodot scores and Seth scores. That keeps that team's match 2-2 as well. I'll flash the scores for everybody for a second here. In the view here. You can see the results so far. Let me put a live position up for us. Drittman against Renga is still intense. I think that Drittman wins. Yeah, Drittman should win. Oh, the other game just ended. We've had our first draw.
Right?
Falk and Lula Robs.
Wow,
with
it's
a
1.5 right now. Which means we're going to fall short of my prediction.
But it does look like Drittman will collect the last point here with King E4, and White will pull out a narrow 2.5, 1.5 lead after having the chance to think about the position a little bit extra.
Yeah. He's just going to have to make sure to take the opposition, and he should be set.
Yeah. Drittman's using his time. But yeah, he should have things okay here.
Is there an overall team score for this as well as like an individual score?
Yes. Yes.
So do we know which team is doing the best so far? Is it just 1 point for
They're basically all tied at the moment. Let's see. Sasha's team is 5 and 6.
I feel like it should almost be more points to win with black based on this starting position. But yeah, I guess it'll compensate in later rounds.
We'll see. If Drittman wins, then I think Team Kostya will win 2.5 to 1.5 their match against Team Sasha, and they'll be the only team with more than 2 points after the first 4 games. So it's going to be very, very close in the team standings here at first. And Drittman's still being very careful, using all his time. Falk is watching his teammate with a smile. I think
like
Falk's
that
watching
move,
that game.
But I guess it's fine.
Yeah, it's weird to get too far away from your pawn.
I mean, anything works at this point, I guess, as long as you don't move backwards to the king.
Yeah. But this is the kind of situation where I would be nervous if I were Falk watching my teammate or if I were Kostya watching my team. when like the point's already in the bag and the only thing that can happen, like they play one weird looking move and you just wonder like, do they know?
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable that you want to be careful. Like that's good. But yeah, at the same time, shouldn't be too difficult.
My read on this Zoom room is that a lot of these players are chatting with their teammate right now, and they're really like having a good like team feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're on like Discord or other voice chats with each other. All right, and Drittman wins by resignation. I'll give him the point over here. Drittman, another player on 2-0 right now. If I've got the standings correct, which I'll flash up now that there's no board to look at. If I've got the standings correct at the moment, which hopefully I do, because otherwise, I mean, it's a pretty janky show. But if I've got the points right, we've got Drittman and Seth, each with 2 points. That means that each of them should have... Oh, right. And Drittman's teammate is Falk with 0.5 point. So Team Kostya has 2.5. And then where Seth has 2 points, Seth's partner's chess numbers was 0 points. I put the team members next to each other in this standings page for anybody wondering. So like Rangal plus Lula is a team. Seth plus chess numbers is a team. I put the teams in alphabetical order by coach's name. Maybe it would have made more sense to put it in the same order as the players over here, but that's what we got for now. Yeah. All right. Laurent's giving me good choice of initial position. Did you see any of last week's tactics challenge, Matt?
Only a little bit. Who was the eventual victor in that one?
It hasn't been decided yet.
Really?
Yeah, we had the test go really, really long, and the corrections were taking a while. And I'm gonna show everybody the current results / standings of the tactics challenge. We had Blue Jay and chess numbers at the end in first and second, and they're supposed to do a final phase for the top 2 scores. Drittman couldn't play because of family that time, so
yeah, I saw that it looked different than like kind of the tactics / puzzle challenge that we did in season 1.
Yeah, I was deliberately throwing wrinkles into this season so that people can't just like assume it'll be a copy of something from before. But in the standings, everyone can see that Blue Jay had like an insane score over the first 2 rounds of 61 points, and chess numbers also like an absolutely insane score of 37. I was expecting scores in the like 10 to 20 range. So those two did amazingly, but that challenge was considered far too difficult by everybody. So that's how the tactics challenge went 2 weeks ago. And we released new power rankings today based on the players' performances there.
Oh, good.
And
yeah, I think that's a great feature for the show just in general.
Yeah. I'm curious who people think is who other people think like the best players are. And I put Blue Jay as my top pick after seeing his tactics performance, but now he's being replaced by Rangal, so people will have to quickly get a sense of how good they think Eric is. It is definitely counterintuitive to back up a king, right? Since like the goal of the king and pawn ending is to have your king as far up the board as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if you trade that pawn, I don't see any scenario where white has enough to win just on the king side myself. We'll see. We had only 1 draw out of 8 games in the previous position, and I think that there's a better chance that we get some draws here.
I think
we've got a couple boards.
From the games that I'm seeing, if anyone has chances, it's Drittman.
Okay. Let me refresh the current position for them here. See Drittman against Velcro Dot. So Drittman, this king's going to have to move, and Drittman's king is going to get to f5.
Yeah.
And then he might still have a reserve tempo on h5. So he might actually be able to win with pawns only on one side of the board.
Yeah.
My argument would be that if black's g-pawn were on g6 or g7, that I think the position's drawn. But I haven't calculated super hard.
Yeah, this is one scenario where white backs up, but they still have a chance to win.
Yeah, because they're so far forward, right? Like they still would have the advantage of being on the 5th rank. I mean, on the 4th rank compared to black's 3rd rank if they back up 1 at the beginning. Okay, well, something's happened here. Let's see if Drittman gets anything. G takes h4 was traded by Velcro Dot. The plan is still for Drittman to put his king on f5.
So if she goes king f7, can she hold?
Right.
King f7, king f5, king g7.
Normally what you play here is king e7, so then on king f5 you can meet them with king f7. But then white's got the reserve tempi. They play h5, and actually it looks like a done deal for black. The white king comes around.
Yeah, so I'm thinking king f7.
So maybe king f7, naively walking into king f5, and then you want to play king g7, and if white flanks you come
king
here.
e6, then you play king g6. I'm not sure how white makes progress.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because if king e7, then you go back to g7, and you can kind of hold them out.
You can't go back because of h5.
Oh, yeah.
But what you could play is f5 if the white king goes too far forward, and you can trade it.
Yeah, you play f5.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then
she goes for a different approach.
Black wins by accident. But, okay.
Yeah.
h5 has just been played. Oh, what a nice idea. Exclam for Velcro Dot.
h5.
That is a clear drawing idea. Oh, bravo. Bravo. And I think some people in chat called it, so bravo to all of you as well.
So
and Seth did as well. Seth, after h4, g6, then brought the king back.
Okay.
And now bringing the king across. So the games
definitely an interesting dynamic. A lot of, I guess higher risk, higher reward, potentially.
Yeah. The games with the pawns still on the queen side are going to be the more fascinating games. So I think Velcro Dot Falk is definitely a draw at that point with all the pawns locked up. Falk's been thinking a long time about it. Bob Joe Jim has just played h5 against Lula's g6. We've seen a couple other games go h4, g6, but white didn't play h5 in those games once black had played g6. Bob Joe Jim does it anyway, and it actually looks pretty promising. It looks like a good move for white.
Yeah, it's interesting to compare, whether you make that trade or whether you fix the structure she has.
Yeah. Oh, b4. He's going for the pawn trade again, Max, and I suspect that's wrong. I don't know this stuff with any certainty. I computer checked the tactics for the tactics challenge, but I didn't computer check these end games.
Yeah, I think, again, he's going to get stuck.
Mm-hmm. Even with one reserve tempo, huh? I think so too, but
maybe, yeah.
I feel like just to get the king to f5, he'll have to spend his reserve tempo because the king can come across as far as d5, but then it runs into e5 being covered.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the problem.
And so you have to go back to e4, black comes to e6, then you have to use your reserve tempo just to get your king to f5. The other thing that white can do is flank with king c6, which I think is what Lula did as white against Seth. And then Seth played king e6 and f5, and that's how white lost one of these games.
Yeah, only difference was they had traded one set of kingside pawns. So like the f and the pawn on f6 and g2 were gone, I think. But
okay.
Yeah, otherwise, same scenario.
I think they actually had them on the board because then the g2 pawn was on g3. Black king took on f5, went to g4, and had to pick which pawn to capture.
Oh, so they were still there.
So I think if Bob Joe Jim plays king c6, he'll be repeating exactly how Lula lost his teammate Seth, which would mean that Bob didn't, that Ty, that's weird to call him Bob, that Ty didn't, really get that memo from Seth, but Lula, of course, will pounce on it if it comes up because she's going to remember that game.
Well, he decides to go back.
Yeah, so that's where I feel it should be a draw. Let's check out one of the games with pawns on the other side of the board.
But if she goes king e6 and he goes g3,
yeah, then she should drop back to e7.
So then king f5, king f7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be key. Actually, we're at a critical point for Velcrodot and Falk, so let's see what the deal is. It's white to play. Falk played g6 check. And Velcrodot took in 2 seconds. That had to be too fast because, you have to calculate very carefully when this move comes in.
Yeah, but I don't think he needed to give up a pawn. Like, his structures.
Oh, he didn't need to.
She has no pawn breakthroughs.
But this might actually be a trap. Like, black could actually win, not lose, by giving up the pawn. See, if white backs up, then you take on g6. Then white backs up, you come to g5. White backs up, you take on g4.
Yeah.
Push the h-pawn down and you win.
That would be a crazy plot twist.
So white needs to play very precisely here. I think the right move would be king e4. King takes
what about
g6,
g5
king
by
f4.
white?
G5 by white is an interesting move too. Yeah.
And then g4.
Putting that out there, yeah. Oh,
G5.
I wonder if that move wins for white, g5.
Yeah, f takes, g4.
Yeah.
And then king has to move, you play king f6. And then you get your king to g6, they can play h5.
Yeah, when they get stalemated by the pawn on g7 on king on g6, they have to play h5.
The king,
they push the
g-pawn.
on
g7, you take on g5, and you have the opposition. I think that's winning.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it bears out one thing I said, which is that some time should have been spent with this g6 move. A lot of time should have been spent. Because
yeah, that was a very risky play.
Because g6 was played by Falk in 6 seconds, and it was taken by Velcrodot in 2 seconds. She could have played king f4 or king e4, right?
Right.
If taking was bad. Like, if she doesn't see the move g5, she shouldn't take on g6. And I'm gonna eat a hat if she saw g5 before she took on g6.
I wonder if he played it as like a trick to try to win, or if he thought that like he had to.
After 3.5 minutes of thought, she finds g5. Velcrodot is showing some really good endgame skills.
Yeah, that's impressive.
And follows it up with g4 and...
Yeah, he's going to go back, king f6.
That is
Or actually,
vicious.
Yeah, in that position, she can even take, after he plays h5, she can even just take with the g-pawn. Because then she'll like checkmate him before he queens.
That's right. So like Max is thinking of position like king g8, king f8, king here, check, here, here, right? So if it were just the g-pawn on king, this would be the proper defense against a single pawn, and black would draw like this because it would be stalemate, but black still got this 2-on-1 over here. They have to use the h-pawn. This is a reason for white to maybe not even want to take that h-pawn, right? And then you take here, here. It's a beautiful end.
Pawn, yeah, it's faster.
Beautiful end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy
so she
stuff.
finds g4, and whew, that is looking good for Team Andras on that board.
Look at Seth's position. Is Seth overextended here?
g4.
He had to play g4.
Black, if he gave way, black would get king g5 and win.
Yeah.
So he plays g4. The danger here is that black can trade and play king e5, right? So it's still dangerous.
Yeah. Actually, it's going to happen.
Still looks lost. Still looks lost. I think once the black king comes to e5, it's just going to eat the h pawn, then go over and eat the b pawn. It's lost. Yeah.
Well, he can try to run his king towards the A pawn, but I think black should be in time. Let's see, king takes, king E5, king F3, king F5.
Oh,
king
you're saying
E3,
white
king
could
G5,
abandon the
king
H pawn
G5.
and run towards black's A pawn. Yeah, it's a long walk. Interesting. Oh, it's not that far off from working.
Yeah, it might even work, actually.
Okay, so the tempi are white needs, and folks, instead of saying squares, if you ever want to calculate one of these things, I think the better technique is to just count how many moves each player needs to queen, and then compare the numbers. I think
Seth's game looked interesting. He's pushed a lot of pawns to the 4th rank, and I wonder if he has some kind of ways to go forward some more. Goes for E5. Huh. I was looking more at F5, but...
Yeah. F5 was very, very interesting. Black would probably play G5 and hope that the entire board is locked, but then white can play what?
Maybe E5 at some moment.
Yeah.
But then king F6, B3, A5, right? So...
And white's out of moves. And even though they've got the protected passer, it looks like they can't get any further with this one. That looks like a dead draw. So
yeah, but if they...
F5, G5. Is there a moment there where white could break through with E5? Tough question.
Well, he goes for E5 directly. Which also, I mean, is reasonable because if they trade, okay, Redmond goes for F5. I was going to say, if they traded king E6, king E4,
yeah,
then I think black might be lost. So maybe F5 had to be
black
played.
can just back up. What's white going to do?
Well, I was thinking, if they just back up right away, well, maybe H5.
Right. Only way to get a square to penetrate. If you can't penetrate, it's a dead draw.
Yeah, H5 because trade, H5. King E6, king F4. Right? And white is eventually going to get into F5.
That was winning.
Don't think, I mean, black could play B5, right? But white just plays B3, so.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a result already. That was quick. I wasn't watching it. It's the pawn breakthrough we talked about. Nargave, his 3rd game decided this way. So, pawn takes on G5. That's a risky choice by black. And then F5 check, king here, and F6. Another one.
Very nice.
Big point for Team Andras in the running for first place here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what he could have done differently with black. If he goes back to F7, is that just lost?
I think so, because white can play king F4 and then E5, E6, and eventually bring the white king to G6. So I think that trading on G5 should lose for black.
Yeah,
if there's any defense, it's somehow holding on here by not doing anything.
I didn't realize at first how tough it'd be for black because of the doubled pawns, but yeah.
Okay, so that's one game down. And, we've got another game down. A draw agreed between Velcro Dot and Lula Robs. Very, very similar position to the one in which Seth managed to play E5 at some point, right? But they had been moving back and forth here, not able to see a way through for their kings. Do you think that in this position there was anything for Velcro Dot to try, or does Lula have a better defensive setup than Dripman had?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe no, I'm not. I was just thinking maybe C4 to kind of fix the queen side and try to. I think H5 maybe was too hasty.
Mm-hmm.
to lock that in place, because then you can't really go for g5 later.
Right. Maybe that didn't need to be played. Or if you do it with your pawn on g2, so you're like nailing down extra reserve tempi for when you need them, right? But
yeah, if
you nail down g6 but take away your ability to open things up. But I think the c4 move might still have some ideas for white. c4, then black can either push or trade, but I'm just going to push for argument's sake. And now for white, I'll try the move e5, the same move that Seth played. Takes on e5, f5 check, king e7. Oh, that's a defense. And now if white ever goes to e4, black has king f6. So black's okay there.
I was just thinking, if in the final position, how crazy would it be for to play c4 by black? Like, does white take that, or they go king c2?
Sorry, at which point?
In the final position.
Yeah.
After king d3 to play c4 check.
Oh, to try a breakthrough for black. And then takes on c4, you're going to take on a4. The white king's going to run towards the corner.
And then if king c2, then maybe king d6, king c5.
Oh, if black ever goes to c5 with the king, then e5 is a nice winning move. The black king gets frozen by the c4 pawn and the e5 pawn. You don't push the e pawn, you just leave it there freezing.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Wow, Drittman thought for a while after e5. No, not after e5. After, wait, what move did they spend a lot of time on? Or maybe that was just a mistake on my end.
Oh, wait.
I think I
need to refresh their actual position, right? Okay, here we go. He played f5. h5 from Seth was crazy. Oh, dramatic.
Whoa. We have a clash of two pass pawns.
Yeah. And here, Seth's down to 20 seconds. He's wondering if he can play king e5, let the g pawn go, and checkmate the king with two pawns. He can't. Oh, he goes for it. Oh, my God.
He's going big or he's going home, but looks like most likely he's going home.
It's dramatic. Team Kostya finds some life, takes a 1.5 point lead, a 1.5 2-1 lead in this round. And Drittman has the top score of anybody now. He just beat the previous leader, Seth, and he is in sole first place at this point in the endgame competition.
Yeah, a lot of results here are just determined by someone overextending. And, I mean, endgames are the easiest phase to do that. So, really got to be careful.
All right, so we're going to give them another 2.5 minutes to talk it over before we get into the final round of this endgame challenge. Let me show you all the scores. I'm going to risk showing you the scores. I know every time I show the scores, I forget to show the board again afterwards, but we'll take that risk. Team Andras with 1.5 points in that round. They are now 0.5 point of Team Kostya bouncing back up. Wow. And how did white do that round? 2-2. Has there been any position that white's completely dominated? Not really.
Wow, that's great. Every round starts with like a evenly split.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, every round has started 2-2.
I mean, this one was close to being in at least like, you know, like the Seth game, we could argue that white shouldn't have lost that one, but.
That's true. I mean, Seth should have been winning, and a game that we missed an important phase of, Bob Joe Jim versus Falk, I also thought was good for white. But of course, I think that all of these ones start with white being good.
Yeah, at least having a practical advantage.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, Drittman making up for time after missing the previous challenge. he would have been considered more of a favorite in the previous challenge. I think he's more known as like a very, very deep calculator who, well, I'm not going to give a full profile on him since the players will watch the VOD, and that's up to them and their coaches to figure out. Anyway, Drittman, let's just say having a great showing here right now. As we see the players in conversation with each other, Falk laughing at what Drittman has to say. Drittman's got to cheer Falk up if he wants them to win this, and it looks like he's doing that successfully. Does anybody's body language tell you that they're going to do well in the last round? What do you think here on these competitors?
I don't know. Oh, look, they're busy discussing strategy. I mean, this is the most complicated position, I think, of the ones we've seen. So a lot of strategizing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And rushing off.
What would you say, David, or like the advice you would give for this particular endgame?
Good question. Good question. And that'll help me bring the board back up right now and go back to the starting position here for a second. So first of all, bum rush with the king.
Yeah,
but
we know king activity, right? Always important.
I tried playing this out against myself really quickly, like blitz speed, right? Bullet speed, like once or twice, just to check like how I felt about the position. And the plan that I won with for white was to bring the white king to f4. Everybody else has put a pawn on f4 that we've seen so far, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
They try and like get the pawns forward, gain space with the pawns. Normally in chess, you put your pawns in front of your pieces to gain territory, to safely bring the pieces up.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of them like to make a connect 4 pawn wall.
Yeah, but I would start king e2, king c6, king e3, king d6, king f4. And now I don't think this king can ever get chased back by black. And with the king on f4, I would go for g4, h4, g5, pressuring the f6 pawn. If I can get black to play fg5, hg5, then I can move my king out of the way and roll the e and f pawns, winning. If black...
Because I guess and would you say it's important to get c4 in early to stop black?
No, I don't think it even matters.
You think just let them...
Run the king to f4, deal with the king side first, and then... If you need to, you can play b3 and or c4 at some point to avoid breakthroughs. Yeah.
Because now if king takes a5, they trade e5, king b6, king f3, king c6, king e4.
Well, if king takes a5, as in a lot of these tactical situations, you don't want to just trade and give up the tension. You want to play e5 there.
Oh, you play e5, so if they take on f4, you're going to be left with the passed g pawn.
If they take on e5, you take fg, and the g pawn is just gone way out of the box. If they take on f4, you take with your king, and again, you're forcing away their f pawn, and you get this faraway pawn to win with. Falk and Seth have just drawn their game, so Falk couldn't find any way through in this position. He's got the same position as Drittman. I recognize this position. They played the same this round.
The position of mutual zigzag.
Falk gets to 2 and Seth gets to 4. And let's check on Drittman as far as who's going to get that second seed in the final tournament. It looks pretty unlosable for Drittman, right? So he should be sitting pretty to win the endgame challenge today. As you know, once Falk, didn't blow it against Seth, that put Drittman in very, very good position. And he's going for the win now. F5 and king f4. Did this king have to drop back? It did not. I was assuming last time we were here that Bob Joe Jim's defense would be king d6, king e6, king d6, king e6.
Yeah.
But he may have feared e5 takes and f5, huh? Then king e7, and if king e4, he's got king f6, and he's fine.
Yeah, because now the king just has a clear path to the basket.
Yeah. So I think that may have provided a defense if he just sat there.
Although he's going to try to get his king in via e5, d4, but I don't think it'll work because white can break with e5.
So chat, what should white do? This should be automatic after 3 hours of these positions.
Ah, yes.
What should white do now, chat, to not allow any counterplay? What's an automatic win? It's a 1-move calculation. Then you don't need to look 3 or 4 or 5 moves ahead. Like king g4, king e5, king f3, king d4, you better have calculated. He didn't do it.
Looks like Lula misplayed.
He didn't do it. Oh, that's nice. Lula got f5 and e5. Oh, wait, but she played f5 before e5,
instead of e5.
then went for the breakthrough.
But the king came back. And that passed a pawn is going to decide
She
things.
plays e6. Is her king in the box? It's not, right? So the a pawn would just queen. She doesn't have an option to set up the protected passer.
Yeah, her king is completely locked out.
Ay.
Yeah,
Okay.
e5 would have been interesting.
Chess Latte got the answer. Yes, Rosenberg says king g4 or e5. No, I didn't say what are the candidate moves. I said what's the correct move that wins for sure. The correct move is e5 check. Pawn takes e5, king e4. Black's got literally no moves. You just know you're going to collect this, collect the g pawn, etc. So clearly Drittman didn't see e5 here, or he would have played it. It's just the easiest possible way to clean up this game. And hopefully after today, at least all the players will know the idea of like check, sacking a pawn, and then stand in front of it and recapture it later. That's just like maybe the best thing to know about king and pawn endings as far as the tactics. Just that little one. Okay, so here we're at Bob Joe Jim playing king to d4. And
yeah,
Drittman should probably play g4 and then g5 as the king goes to c3. King c3, g5, king b3, gf, king moves f7, b3, f8, b2. I guess he still wins. The game just ended.
It's still a little bit messy, right? Because if he can pick off b3,
Nargate
have some ones over there.
Gets to 4 points as well, tied with Drittman and Seth. So if Drittman loses this somehow, everyone will be tied at 4 here. Played g5. F takes g5 gives a full extra tempo to white, by the way, in the race. For any fans of racing out there, after g5 here, white's got a pawn on the 5th rank. You can keep going with what you're doing. But if you take, white's got a pawn on the 6th rank before you keep doing what you're doing. So you're giving a full tempo unless
maybe he wants to
matters.
just take on c4 and have a bunch of connected pass pawns, but yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Too slow, unfortunately.
Go to all cams. We will show the results. Whoops. We will show the results for a moment. The players may rejoin us in chat for a minute. And oh my gosh, it's a tie between the two teams.
Oh, wow.
We'll make them play another endgame as a tiebreaker. Just kidding. Just kidding. We'll let them share the prize money.
Team?
We'll let them share the prize money.
It's just the decisive player is the most important, right?
I'm not going to use any tiebreaker. Yeah, I'm just going to divide the money between the two teams. So first place being 300 and second place 200. I'll put 250 in each team's account. In fact, we can put the prize money over here. Why not? Prize.
So Drittman was first and Narg was second, looks like.
There's a multiple way tie for second.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Seth. I missed Seth is also on 4.
Nargate and Seth. Yeah. All right.
Stuff.
So, if the players can hear us again, feel free to join the conversation for a minute, if you like.
Sure.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to Drittman for a couple minutes. who will hopefully be feeling well right there.
Hello.
Hello.
Seth.
Hey, good games, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, good
Definitely
games.
good games.
Good games.
Yeah. So, we gave you all pawn endgames. Raise your hand if you thought that the selection of endgames was great. Okay, 1.5. And raise your hand if you thought the selection of endgames was terrible.
Is this a trick question?
No, I'm just curious what you guys thought of the positions. Like, did they feel like sometimes when you practice endgames, you might think the position's not that interesting, or like one side's completely winning, or you might think it was just drawn and there was nothing to do for either side. So I'm just curious. There's no right or wrong answer.
I thought all the positions felt fairly balanced, and it just depended on the plan that you picked to proceed with and how you reacted to your opponent. I don't know. I felt like it was pretty balanced overall.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the first one, I can't remember which one of the sides I thought was definitely better.
Yeah, one of the ones I thought was winning for white. Yeah.
White I thought was winning the first one, and the last one I thought
and
was
I'm not,
pretty good for
I don't
white,
think there was a position that I thought was winning for black.
That's right. All the positions had some advantage for white, but they're positions that there's like, in my opinion, like a lot of room to like play still, and hard to really. I mean, you would have to be better than me to sort of just confidently be like, I know that white's winning, or I know that black can hold a draw. You know, it's sort of be tricky to play.
It was only the one where the pawn was the H pawn that I knew you could draw it. All the because like if you just put your king on the corner, there's nothing you can do about it. So it was the only one that I knew that could be drawn. All the other ones, I was like, I thought white was winning for all of the other ones.
Okay,
but I think the question is like how to find it, right?
Yeah. For example, for the last one, I think that there's a good plan for white, which is to bring the king to f4. And nobody tried that today. Everybody tried putting their pawn on f4 and kind of, or almost everybody tried pushing all their pawns, like e4, f4, g4, h4.
Rengo did.
Yeah, he did in the last one. I think he got his king up.
The game that I just played against him, he put his king there. And that I didn't think about that because I was thinking of everyone I'm sure probably like did the same thing as me. You did the pawn wall.
Yeah.
But he put his king there.
Oh, you're right. One person did. And we did say it was one of the most convincing games that we'd seen, that he seemed to have the advantage.
Can't black
really pushed through there?
I guess he just came straight to f4. Like, couldn't black stop him?
Yeah, maybe e5.
If black wanted to stop white, they would have to, on their own, play g5 really early, which gives white other ways to try and open up the king side. So it's an interesting question, but I thought the plan of bringing the king to f4 was very strong. Okay, well, extra prize to Renga for thinking of that. Did anyone else think of that and I just didn't notice it? Because I just saw like pawn walls mostly.
I didn't think of that in front of the pawn. My plan when I had white was f4 to f5 and then king f4, but I ran into g5 and my plan never got off the ground. So somewhere I thought of a version of it, but it didn't make it anywhere near the board.
Yeah.
I think it would have.
The question was, what endgame did you guys think was like the hardest to kind of work out? Like what to do? Is it this last one?
I think the last one for me.
Yeah, because that's the most complicated. So
I guess I have a weird take where to me the second was the hardest, because I guess the last one I knew was ambiguous and like you just got to kind of play chess and try to exploit mistakes. But I had trouble coming up with an actual plan for the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the second one was hardest as well.
The second one is the only one I didn't create. That one comes straight from a game between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Alexei Shirov. And Lagrave drew the game with Shirov and in his blog said, this endgame is deceptively complicated and I think I had chances to try and win it, but like it's like really hard to figure out. So obviously I wasn't giving this to you like with the tactics challenge, like expecting like all correct moves, right? I was just trying to give you guys somewhere where you could play moves against each other and see what you all came up with. And I think one thing that you'll find if you review your games, this will hold for any of you, is you'll find there are a lot of like interesting tactics in a lot of these games, like little trick moves that really had a big effect on the games. Like, for example, I think there was a game where Katrina was white and Falk was black, maybe, where Falk uses like a G6 pawn sack.
I thought it was a draw.
And it looks like she's stuck, but then she came up with this G5 move afterwards, running him out of moves. And that G5 move straight into both his pawns. What a move.
I cheat. I didn't cheat a little bit, but yesterday during my coaching, Andras told me specifically never to count. He said, like, it doesn't matter if they promote if you're faster. Mm-hmm. So I thought that I was like, it's okay, we can just push it. But I actually almost offered him a draw.
Yeah. Well, that move was just like a fantastic tactical move. And I know some of you will probably check on the VOD at some point. And I think one thing you'll see is just like some really cool tactics, like all over the place in these end games. So,
my final question would be like, what do you guys think are the biggest takeaways in terms of like what you're going to be looking for in King and Pawn end games in the future?
I guess just bringing your king in.
Okay.
Big.
I don't know. I found restraint worked really well in a lot of the positions, like just sort of timing the pawn thrusts appropriately. And then the other thing is just like time usage. So my second game against Seth, I'm like 100% sure I was crushing him. And like, I just like quickly moved and I blundered away the promotion. So it's just sort of using your time and actually thinking about the position. Whereas I was just sort of on autopilot at that point.
Mm-hmm. I thought I was like, wait, what? Against you, and went into autopilot, moved fast, and all of a sudden you were winning instead.
I think one thing I'm going to look for is, like, I think it's, at least for me, it's natural to look for pawn breaks, but sometimes a pawn move that actually fixes the pawn structure in an advantageous way is something that I don't look for enough for me or my opponent.
Yeah. And Falk, I have a question for you. Drittman eventually came out on top in the tournament. During those little 2-minute breaks or 3-minute breaks, did he ever tell you something that you found useful? Did he ever give you like a boost as a teammate?
I mean, we talked about the games and the strategies we might have. So
yeah,
it worked out better for him, but yeah.
Say yes.
It's like we talked. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we did. It was helpful, I guess.
Dylan used the exact same strategy that I used against Falk against me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In the last game, Falk and I were discussing what to do if black push it, because we had black in the first game, but this idea of b5 as black to try to make a pawn break, but the idea that you just play a5 as white.
Which you played so fast in that last round.
Yeah, we had looked at like
was
three
he prepared
variations
for it?
there.
Wow.
Yeah, we looked at a lot out of there. So I was like, oh, this is great.
I assume that was between round prep when they just hammered that when Falk just played it immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is their plan. But I didn't buy it. I thought the king was more important to bring.
I mean, I didn't win, so maybe it was.
I don't. But who knows? Yeah, that one was hard.
I think one thing that surprised me was how easy it is sometimes to set up a draw, right, with like pawn blockades.
Yeah,
like it really surprised me. Like my last few games, I just forced a draw by setting up a pawn blockade.
So now that you've played this tournament, is there anybody who feels like they're relatively better at endgames maybe than other phases of the game? Does anybody feel like, hey, maybe my endgame is a strength?
No. I died for a second and I would say it's definitely not a strength. So.
I don't know. It is. I only recently thought that my endgames might be a strength because in my OTB games, like, over 50% of my wins lately have just been me just squeezing people in end games. And then I was just like, man, these people like around my rating, because we get into like equalish end games, are just horrible at these end games. So I was like, maybe maybe this is like where my strength lies. Maybe I should be angling for these more, but
you don't need to be, like a GM at it. You just have to feel like compared to other people you're rating or compared to how well you play, a checkmating attack or the defense against a checkmating attack, that maybe you have better chances in endgames. Yeah. Eric, do you think that ultimately the player who wins the tactics challenge or the player who wins the endgame challenge, do you feel like either one of those players, like that's like a more important skill for eventually coming out on top in the finals here?
Probably the endgame challenge.
Okay.
Because since we're playing with 5-second increment, I imagine that there's going to be a fair amount of endgames, and if one player can just beat everybody else in those, then they might have an edge. Because, tactics are great, but you can also like fire and miss, Yeah. But if you're just solid in the ending, then that's
Cool. And Dylan, great job making up for missing the tactics challenge and the missed time. You were on fire today. How did you think your chances were going into this today? Do you think you'd be in the middle of the pack or in the top?
It's funny for me for endgames. I know Seth is good at endgames. I've played enough with him to know that, but I think a lot of his games also tend towards needing these, like you get these like end games with certain pawn structures and you have to convert. The way I play middle games, I'm either like, I have a huge advantage in an end game because I had an attack and I converted it into like an end game that should be winning for me. And then I have to convert the end game, or my middle game attack didn't work. And now I have to like try to hold the draw in a worse end game. So I think because of how I play the middle game, I don't very often get like, oh, this is an even end game, and like may the best end game player win. So it was kind of like, I was actually kind of interested, like then starting with even end games, like how would I do? Because it's actually not something I normally get. So.
Well, the funny thing is I decided for some reason in our end game to go for like a crazy calculation competition. I was like, I could hang back and try to draw this, or I just go for it and then still try to draw it with the queen.
Yeah, there was a point like you had made a pawn push and I kind of pushed back, and it could have just led to a locked pawn structure and a draw. But I noticed you kind of went for it. I'm like, man, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
That was the craziest.
Yeah.
There's another takeaway that I think is interesting where like I'll be playing a game and I'll come up with a plan that I think is very good. And then a few moves later, I'll realize my plan is absolutely wrong. And then I will think I'm dead lost. And then all of a sudden I will be winning. So like there's still ups and downs in this. I feel like, one mistake, it's not just always right over.
All right. So here I want to thank all the contestants for putting on a great show. I thought you showed a lot of great skills and toughness, good time usage in many cases, and it was hopefully a very entertaining show for everyone, thanks to you all. And also, I want to give a very special thank you to Max. It was a delight to spend an afternoon with you looking at endgames, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot from you.
Yeah, good job, everyone.
All right, so chat, we say goodbye to you here. Have a great afternoon, evening, etc. There will be 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks between competitions because of the holidays, so hopefully you can enjoy those. The next Ultimate Sensei competition will be on January 8th, but in the meantime, you can still follow lessons. Here are links to the streams of several of the senseis and students, so you can see who's doing what work and who you think is getting ready to come out on top at the end of January in our final tournament. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye for now.